It was the winter of 1908, and I had just turned 24. My family and I lived in an old farmhouse on the outskirts of a small town in Massachusetts. The house was large and drafty, its creaking floorboards and groaning walls a constant reminder of its age. It had been in our family for generations, passed down from father to son, but it was a house filled with memories, some good, some not. One night, a terrible blizzard swept through the area, blanketing the town in snow. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and making the walls shudder. Inside, the fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the walls. My wife and children were asleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I sat in the parlor, staring into the fire, trying to calm my nerves. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the timbers as they settled in the cold. But then, in the midst of the storm, I heard it. A soft, persistent knock at the door. I froze, listening intently. The knock came again, louder this time, as if someone was standing just outside, desperate to get in. I grabbed the lantern from the mantel and made my way to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. When I opened the door, I was met with a blast of icy wind and a figure standing in the doorway, half buried in snow. It was a man, tall and thin, his face pale and gaunt. He was dressed in tattered clothes, his eyes hollow and dark. "Please," he said, his voice weak and trembling. "May I come in?" "The storm. It's so cold." I hesitated, unsure of what to do. The man looked like he hadn't eaten in days, his skin stretched tight over his bones. But there was something in his eyes, something that made me uneasy. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let him in. He stumbled into the house, collapsing into a chair by the fire. I offered him a blanket, but he waved it away, staring into the flames with a strange intensity. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "You've saved me." I nodded, but something about the man's presence unsettled me. He seemed to fade in and out of the firelight, as if he were more shadow than flesh. I asked him his name, but he didn't answer, just kept staring into the fire. Hours passed, and the storm outside showed no sign of letting up. The man didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there, silent and still. I tried to talk to him, to learn who he was, where he had come from, but he remained silent. Finally, as dawn approached, the storm began to subside. I turned to the man, ready to tell him that he could stay until the roads were clear. But when I looked at him, my blood ran cold. He was gone. The chair was empty, the blanket undisturbed. There was no sign that anyone had been there at all. No footprints in the snow outside. No trace of the man who had knocked on my door in the middle of the night. I searched the house, but found nothing. The man had vanished, leaving behind only the lingering cold that seemed to seep into the very walls of the house. I never saw him again. But every winter, when the wind howls and the snow falls heavy, I can still hear that knock at the door, a reminder of the night I let in something that should have stayed outside.